Welcome. It's, again, Police Week in Washington, D.C., and law enforcement officers from around the United States and around the world come here to honor those who work every day, who walk the beat, who protect us in our communities, but also to remember those who we've lost in the prior year. We are here today, my Democratic colleagues, although colleagues from both sides of the aisle were invited to make sure that we do not forget the heroism that took place just over our shoulders on the Capitol steps on January 6th. And we're joined by two police officers who worked to defend the Capitol that day. They were not the only ones, but they embody the bravery that day in Officer Danny Hodges of the Metropolitan Police Department and Sergeant Gonell from the Capitol Police Department. We are here to ask the question, how much more do these officers have to do? What else do they have to give to be properly honored and to have this plaque, which is 2 years overdue, put inside the Capitol to memorialize what happened that day? Blessed are the peacemakers. They are the children of God. And our Republican colleagues are very good about talking about backing the blue. But backing the blue is not a t-shirt. It's not a slogan. It's a deed. And what we see too often is that they don't back the blue, they back the coup. In some warped way, the heroes of January 6th, through the acts of President Trump, have become the villains. And the villains, through the acts of President Trump, have somehow been sold to the American people as the heroes. But we know the truth. We know what these officers did, and we know what was done to them. And so in every three-act story, the second act is always the hardest. And that's where we find ourselves right now, with the president and our Republican colleagues refusing to honor and acknowledge what these officers did. But there will be a third act, and it will come soon. And I promise you, in 2027, in early January, we will not meet out here. We will meet inside, and we will put this plaque in the Capitol, and it will stay there for all of time to honor these officers. What more must they do? They shouldn't have to do another act. It's on us, a Republican Congress and a Republican president, to act and to honor them. I want to bring up our lead manager from the second impeachment, where these officers' acts were played out for the country and the Senate jurors, and the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, who also represents in his congressional district many of the officers who were hurt that day, our ranking member, Jaime Raskin.
Thank you, Congressman Swalwell, for your leadership on this. It's an honor to be in the presence of Sergeant Gonell, who was forced from the police force because of severe injuries that were inflicted on him on January 6th when he fought valiantly for hours to defend us against the extremists, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and the mob of marauders who stormed the Capitol. It's an honor to be here with Officer Hodges, who was tortured in front of the eyes of the world on TV on the West Front when he got caught in the door and was pummeled by the rioters. They, along with Officer Dunn and Officer Fanone, have come to represent hundreds and hundreds of other officers who stood in the breach on that day and saved us. And to me, it's absolutely unspeakable that the Speaker of the House would continue not only to disrespect them, but to disrespect the rule of law by refusing to put this plaque up there. The very final sentence of the plaque reads something to the effect of, we will never forget your sacrifice and your service to us. Well, some people have already forgotten their service and their sacrifice, and in fact, they want everybody else to forget it. But we are here today because we will never forget how they stood in the breach to defend not just the Democrats, but the Republicans, and not just the members of the House, but the members of the Senate, and not just members of Congress, but Vice President Pence, as they chanted, "Hang Mike Pence," on that day. So I want to again thank them for their service. We will see to it that future generations of Americans will be able to regard this plaque and pay you the proper honor for everything you've done.
Thank you, Ranking Member Raskin. I'd like to invite up the Vice Chair of the Democratic Caucus and a military veteran, Ted Lieu.
I want to thank former prosecutor and Representative Eric Swalwell for convening this important press conference. During National Police Week, we were here to honor the police officers that defended our Capitol on January 6th against criminals who assaulted the Capitol and assaulted law enforcement officers. We're honored to have the law enforcement officers, some of them here joining us. And we're also here to make the very obvious point that January 6th will never be forgotten. And why is that? Because we have video of what happened. We have audio of what happened. The January 6th Commission did a great job interviewing all the witnesses who were there. I was honored to serve as an impeachment manager under the lead of Representative Raskin. And millions of people watched on live TV what happened on January 6th. So no matter how many people Donald Trump pardons, he can never erase this stain on his legacy and this stain in history. And in fact, the people he pardoned, some of them went out to commit additional crimes. This is yet a second stain on Donald Trump's legacy that will never be erased. And both of these stains are going to get bigger as history goes on. And we're also calling on Republicans to please put up this plaque mandated by law to honor those who protected us on January 6th. And my message to Republicans is, look, if you're not going to support police officers because the people who attack them happen to be your supporters, then you really don't support police officers. You're just being partisan hacks. Please don't be partisan hacks. Put up this plaque to honor the January 6th law enforcement officers who protected this Capitol. And with that, I'm so honored to introduce Bonnie Watson Coleman, who did an amazing job standing up for courage and for due process in your work recently at a detention center.
Thank you, Ted. I want to thank my colleague, Ted Lieu, and I want to thank Eric for assembling us together. Today is a very important day. I think we need to remember that words don't mean anything if there's not action behind it. So the rhetoric that you hear about Republicans supporting law enforcement is rhetoric. I'm glad to be here because I was there on January the 6th. I remember the terror. I remember hearing it. I was in a room just behind a lot of the chaos that was taking place. But most of all, I remember the bravery of the Capitol police officers who gave up their lives eventually, and most assuredly their safety and security, to protect us. One of them was one of them was Brian Sicknick from my district. I've met with his family a number of times. We've been here before you on the Triangle, just recognizing his sacrifice and the sacrifice of all of the police officers that day. We are here because there is a commitment to honor the bravery of our Capitol Police by putting up this plaque. This plaque is just a small gesture of our appreciation, but what it stands for is that we shall never, ever forget. We will always be grateful. I am very grateful for the bravery of our officers. I will stand with all of my colleagues from now until the time I have no voice to ensure that we recognize that on January the 26th, our officers stepped up, put their lives at risk. We've lost over 140 police officers to some degree because of that. But they did it because they believed in our democracy and they had taken an oath to this office. And we simply want the Republican majority and the president to respond and respect the oath that they supposedly took as well. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Next is former federal prosecutor and House Judiciary Homeland Security member Dan Goldman.
Thank you, Congressman Swalwell, for convening us. Thank you to my more senior members for letting me sneak in before a far more important obligation related to kids than work. But we are here today, and I am here today, to call out the incredible hypocrisy of the Republican Party. They have named this National Police Week, yet they were silent as Donald Trump pardoned hundreds of people who assaulted police officers, including 2 who are bravely here with us today and who have been terrific spokesperson for all of the officers, more than 140 who were assaulted that day. How can you be silent when the president pardons people who violently assaulted police officers and then profess to back the blue? It's a joke. It's a joke. And so we are here today to emphasize that on National Police Week, these are the officers that we want to make sure get the recognition they are due. By spokesperson for all of the officers, more than 140 who were assaulted that day. How can you be silent when the president pardons people who violently assaulted police officers and then profess to back the blue? It's a joke. It's a joke. And so we are here today to emphasize that on National Police Week, these are the officers that we want to make sure get the recognition they are due by putting this plaque up as required by law to signify and commemorate their valiant effort in the face of tremendous violence that day to protect the Capitol, to protect the members of Congress, and to protect the Vice President of the United States. Now, I understand the Republicans are afraid to speak out against Donald Trump, but this is a terrific opportunity for them to do something to honor the officers who defended them that day. These officers did not choose to defend Democrats or Republicans. They chose to defend members of Congress and the hallowed institution of democracy that resides in this building. So my Republican colleagues, you don't have to speak out against Donald Trump. You don't have to stand up for these officers to reject and oppose the egregious pardons that Donald Trump issued on his first day. You can send the message by following the law and just putting up a plaque to commemorate what the officers did that day. If you can't even do that, then you need to erase National Police Week from your vocabulary, and you need to never, ever say again that you back the blue. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Goldman. I'd like to introduce House Intelligence Committee member, military veteran, and impeachment manager in the first impeachment, Jason Crow from Colorado.
Thank you, Eric Swalwell, for pulling us together. My name is Jason Crow from the great state of Colorado, and it's always an honor to stand with my colleagues, many of whom were trapped along with me on January 6th in the House gallery as a riotous mob inspired by Donald Trump attempted to take the Capitol and overturn our democracy, and in the process brutally beat 140 police officers, 5 of whom later died because of the visible and invisible injuries and trauma of that day. Like so many of my colleagues have pointed out, the rank hypocrisy of the House Republicans on this police week. I'm a combat veteran, and as somebody that's served in uniform, there is a solidarity with people that serve in uniform. Whether you're a police officer, a sheriff's deputy, a soldier, an airman, or a Marine, there's something about putting on a uniform, a badge, carrying a gun to work, and knowing that to fulfill your responsibility, it might require you giving your life. That is a heavy, heavy understanding, and it gives common cause to all of us who have done that. And those who have done that also know that while we appreciate sentiment, while we appreciate people thanking us for our service, you quickly learn that talk is cheap. You quickly learn the difference between people who actually will follow through, who will be there for you and your family, who will provide benefits, that will actually follow through on that promise that our country and community make to our people in uniform, and those that simply want to thank you for the service and go about their day. And unfortunately, that is where we find so many House Republicans on this police week. As my colleagues pointed out, proposed cuts to grant programs and federal budgets that flow directly to our police departments and our sheriff's departments that will have drastic impact on the ability for them to do their job and to protect themselves and to protect our families and communities. In addition to that, something as simple as following through on an actual law that we passed in 2022 to simply put a plaque up, a nonpartisan plaque, thanking the officers who protected us, all of us, regardless of our politics, that day, and put so much on the line. And they simply will refuse to do it because they're afraid of Donald Trump. We are not lacking in understanding in Capitol Hill. What so many people lack is simple political courage. I'm not asking my colleagues to storm the beaches of Normandy. I'm not asking my colleagues to put on a uniform and to stand in the breach to protect our country or to protect our community. I'm simply asking them to take the votes they need to take and to have a small amount of political courage to do the right thing, to support those who do the right thing every day for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. And we all remember who were on the floor that day, what Jason did to help others in the gallery. I want to invite up my colleague from Texas, who was on the Judiciary Committee during much of the accountability days for the former president and current president, and now a member of the Appropriations Committee, member from Texas, Veronica Escobar.
Thank you. Buenas tardes. I want to thank my colleague Eric Swalwell for bringing us together to truly honor the heroes who saved our lives that day. And I want to thank Sergeant Gonell and Officer Hodges for saving our lives. As Eric mentioned, I was trapped in the gallery that day along with Jason and other colleagues. And in fact, I was among the group that was the last to leave the gallery and saw firsthand what our officers were going through and the incredible horror they experienced, a lot of horror and trauma and injury that they live with today. And this plaque is the bare minimum that Congress can and should do to honor these heroes. And our debt to them goes way beyond this plaque. Just so that you all know what they've had to endure, members of law enforcement who were there that day on January 6th, who had to retire, who can no longer do the work that was their livelihood, have also been denied their full benefits, and some have had to resort to GoFundMe accounts in order to pay their bills and support their family. That should be despicable to all of us. So when Republicans say they back the blue, why is it that they just back some of the blue? Why can't they bring themselves to embrace and support and honor the heroes of January 6th? Is it because they agree with their colleagues like Marjorie Taylor Greene and their president, Donald Trump, who calls the January 6th insurrectionists and domestic terrorists and criminals, call them martyrs? Do they agree with that? Do they agree that the January 6th terrorists are martyrs? Do they feel such obedience that they can't bring themselves to put up a plaque honoring these heroes? Do they feel such obedience that they can't bring themselves to provide the full benefits that these heroes have earned? We do. We stand with them We are grateful to them. We will not stop fighting for them, beginning with this plaque, but not ending with this plaque. And I think the Republican Party and the Republican president should be answerable to the public and to the law enforcement community as to why this hypocrisy exists. Thank you so much, Eric. I appreciate you.
I'd like to invite up colleague, House Intelligence Committee member, also military veteran, Chrissy Houlahan. Thanks. Yeah.
And thank you, Representative Swalwell, for organizing this today. Listen, there's not much to say that hasn't been said, so what I will say is I am a military veteran, my father and grandfather as well. Many in my family served in uniform. As Representative Crow said, we have a certain allegiance and kindred spirit with those who serve us here domestically. My father, my husband's grandfather was chief of police in the Chicagoland area, and my mother-in-law always says we are a nation of law and order. I'm a law and order gal. She happens to also associate herself largely with the Republican Party. Law and order is not a partisan issue. This is an American issue. And if we genuinely believe in law and order, then we have both on display right now. The police who gave everything in many cases to us on January 6th in defense of this building, the people within it, and the democracy behind it, should be honored in every way possible. And there is literally a law that says that would require that we put this plaque up. They say that history is written by the winners. We are busy unwriting the history that we all know happened, whether it's by pardoning those people who committed the crimes of January 6th or by refusing to put up the plaque that honors and recognizes those crimes. We are clearly defining who those winners, so to speak, are. And what I would say is we are all the losers if that's what happens. The American people are the losers, the people who we represent are losers, and the way that we believe in, the way of democracy in this republic, is losing as a result. It takes nothing, literally nothing, to do the simplest of things, to follow the law and obey order. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Chrissy. I want to invite up my colleague from Virginia on the Ways and Means Committee, but also represents many of the officers who defended the Capitol on January 6th, Don Beyer.
Thank you, Eric. And I too want to really thank Eric Swalwell for pulling this all together and for stating so precisely that instead of backing the blue, they are backing the coup. My father was West Point graduate and career military officer, and his absolute bottom line was always do what's right. That's the first thing. And I think we're looking now here at a profound moral failure on the part of the Republican leadership. The Republican leadership who so often likes to refer to the Bible and to their faith to guide them. And yet I cannot imagine a deeper moral failure than refusing to acknowledge the sacrifice that these men made. Officer Hodges and Sergeant Gonell. To be personal, 3 of these police officers I represented, the honor to represent. Brian Sicknick, who was beaten and tased and had 2 strokes and died a few hours later. He clearly died because of the wounds that he suffered at the hands of these people. Jeff Smith, who suffered a severe brain injury right here, representing all of us. His wife said he was fundamentally changed in the hours after this event, and of course he took his own life driving to work a day or 2 later. And Michael Fanone, who was beaten, tased, suffered a heart attack, has gone through lots of serious problems ever since that day, and many, many more. This was a bipartisan bill. Dozens of Republicans in the House and Senate voted for this plaque. And it's just difficult for me to understand how the Speaker of the House is so afraid of Donald Trump, so afraid of the more extreme members of his own caucus, or so afraid of the evil, bad, mean, violent people who attacked our noble servants on that day. It's embarrassing, and I look forward to us rectifying this extreme wrong in the days to come.
Did Steve disappear? Steve Cohen? Yeah. Thank you, Don. I'd like to bring up my colleague from Pennsylvania, House Judiciary Committee member Mary Gay Scanlon.
Thank you, Representative Swalwell, for convening us. I want to join all of my colleagues in thanking Officer Hodges, Sergeant Gonell, and every one of the members of the Capitol Police, the Metropolitan Police, all the numerous police agencies which responded on January 6, 2021 to defend our Capitol, to defend the people who work there, and to defend our democracy. That is a debt we can never repay. Our democratic republic literally hung in the balance that day, and but for their bravery, could have gone another way. So we are eternally grateful. And it's so important right now. This isn't about some little sign or anything. This is about a White House and a congressional majority that is trying to erase facts, trying to erase history, and trying to erase the rule of law and our very Constitution. So this plaque is a way that we ensure they do not erase it. This was passed into law, as was said, in a bipartisan basis. This isn't just a poster board. This plaque exists. It's in this building. Republican leadership has stopped the architect of the Capitol from pulling out a drill and actually mounting the plaque on the wall. So this is not just about a plaque. It's about standing up and refusing to erase facts, refusing to erase history, and standing up for the rule of law. So again, our eternal gratitude to the brave men and women who stood up for us all across America here on January 6, 2021. And we've got work to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Gay. I want to invite up as the member closer, and then we'll hear from the officers, Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. Of course, you know her as the speaker who led us back to the floor on January 6th as quickly as we could once the officers had cleared the Capitol, the speaker who led us to the second impeachment of Donald Trump. But I want to tell you personally, because I've seen this in many private settings, the number of times that she has sat down and met with the officers who are standing with me and many others who you have never seen. She is committed to these officers. I've also seen her in a room where Michael Fanone broke the world record for most F-bombs dropped in the Speaker's office. And she loves him as much as all of the other officers. But her care and commitment to these officers is unlimited. And so I want to bring up our speaker to close us out for the members, Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swalwell. I'll join our colleagues in thanking you for bringing us together on for this very important initiative. You have, as you have mentioned, spent a good deal of time with the police officers. You have been a real champion in keeping all of this going and, again, bringing us together. And as Mary Kay said, this isn't about a plaque. It's about a decision that was made to ignore the recognition that Congress in 2022 voted in a bipartisan way, the recognition to our police officers. Officer Hodges, Sergeant Gonell, thank you. Thank you and your colleagues for what you did that day. I just want to back up for a moment to say what happened that day. That day, in this Capitol, we had an assault on the Constitution of the United States, an assault on the Congress of the United States, and an assault on the Capitol of the United States. It was one that came with such fierce and defecation, if I just may say how awful it was, with disrespect for the workers of the Capitol who keep it so lovely for visitors and safe. And then, at the instigation of the President of the United States, they caused an insurrection right here in the Capitol. And they are trying to rewrite history, a different narrative than what happened. Why the Constitution? Because that was the day we were, by law, supposed to, and we did, accept the numbers from the Electoral College. It was so emotional for us because this is what our responsibility was. to accept those numbers from the Electoral College. They did everything in their power, try to steal the boxes and all the rest. It was a hopeless thing for them. But that was why they came that day. It wasn't just any day. It was Electoral College Day. Okay, so we have that. The Constitution said that they came that day. The Congress of the United States was charged to do that, and this was an assault to make sure we couldn't do that. And the Capitol, this dome, built by Abraham Lincoln and during the Civil War, people said, Mr. President, we need the steel and the person power to fight the war. He said, no, we must show the world we are resilient. And it continued the construction of this dome. To see that dome besmirched by people coming in with flags from, I don't know, Nazi flags, any kind of flag that was counter to what we believe in as our country, and an insult to Abraham Lincoln in addition to the Congress, the Constitution, and our people who are here. So let's not let them rewrite history. They're doing this as a counter-narrative to the truth, because they can't face the truth. And the truth is that they did something very wrong, unpatriotic, illegal, unconstitutional that day. So you would think they would welcome the opportunity to say the people who saved our lives should be recognized. We were able, of course, to do the Congressional Gold Medal for the Capitol Police, the Metropolitan Police, and the law enforcement that saved our lives that day. We were also able to pass the legislation in the Democratic majority, but in a bipartisan way, for this plaque, so that everyone who came to the Capitol would see that recognition. But what you see now is an attitude of fear. They're afraid of the president. Why would they be afraid of a plaque? They're afraid of the president. They're afraid of the free press and how this is reported. They're trying to dilute the story of what happened that day. They're undermining the principles of democracy as they refuse to put up this plaque. But we will continue until it is there, and it won't be long. It won't be long. Now, I associate myself with everything that our colleagues have said. I get emotional about the Electoral College because we had staff from the Senate side carrying the mahogany boxes over, and they were chasing them down to get the mahogany boxes. It was a horrible thing. So don't anybody be misled because of their interference with freedom of the press and the threats they're making to people who don't vote with them on this. This was an insurrection incited by the President of the United States, and its effect is being carried out by not recognizing the role of those who protected us that day. And I'm just very honored to be here with my colleagues, but especially to be here with our police officers. In this police week, you would think that they would, with pride, carry this into the Capitol. Well, the day is early. Thank you again, Eric Swalwell, for bringing us together. Thank you, my colleagues, for sharing your personal experiences that day. But we will not let them deny the truth and the fact of what happened that day. To do so would be to undermine the vision of our founders, the sacrifice of the people who were there to protect us, and the aspirations of those who visit the Capitol. I yield back.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I asked the officers to go last because I wanted them to hear how highly we think of them. So, Sergeant Gonell, I would invite you up. And if all Sergeant Gonell and Danny Hodges did was defend the Capitol on January 6th, as they say, and the Speaker likes to say, in Hamilton, that would be enough. But they have stayed in this fight for our democracy and for the other officers. And so, please, Sergeant Gonell.
Thank you, Eric, and all the other speakers for having us here today to be honored. But before I begin, I need to acknowledge the ultimate sacrifice that the 5 officers protecting our democracy on January 6th. Their courage must not be forgotten. While Speaker Mike Johnson, the president, and his supporters get in front of the cameras and proclaim their devout support for the law for the rule of law, law and order, and the police, their actions speak louder. They voted against awarding the officers the Congressional Gold Medal. They continue to defend the indefensible. A direct assault on our Capitol, where many of my colleagues and I were injured by the very same people who claim they support. At a rally weeks before January 6, many of them were telling us, we are not like them. We are not Antifa. We support you. Thank you for your service. Yet on January 6, they turned on us and they beat us with flagpoles, with flags, the American flag still attached. As a police officer, we protected elected officials from both parties the same, regardless of their views or our views or their philosophies. We kept our oath and defend and protect. And we did it to the best of our abilities under the assault that we were facing, to give them, the government officials, time to escape or get to safety. As many of those elected officials, especially from the Republican side, many of them were running in fear for their lives, while I was fighting for my colleagues in the tunnel, facing the violent mob on the west front of the Capitol, risking my life to give them a chance again to escape. I was assaulted many times to the point of drawing blood from both my hands and subsequently undergoing 2 surgeries on my right foot and my left shoulder. I was trapped and nearly killed by the newly pardoned more than 1,500 unjustly mistreated criminals who recorded themselves storming the Capitol and assaulting us. We saved lives. We defended democracy. And to commemorate our valiant action during the police week here in D.C., Republicans in Congress continue to defy their own law on 2022 congressional law to honor the January 6 officers with a plaque with their names, not the names of the agencies as this one has. In response to inquiry to Speaker Mike Johnson about the plaque, he said at one point, I'm still deciding which bathroom stall is going to be installed. His response is not only an insult and desecration of our service and sacrifice, it is also a betrayal to every police officer who protected him and his colleagues from the violent mob on January 6. To make things worse, Republican officials now want to give reparations to those who pay for the damage that they caused, even agree to a settlement with the family of one of the attackers to show their support for the rule of law. They see those who attack us, the police, as victims by using words as political prisoners, hostages, tourists, and unjustly mistreated people, when they want to have them feel pity for them. When they want to celebrate the rioters, they use words as patriots, heroes, and warriors. And then when it comes to describe the officers, they refer to us as thugs, as if we, the officers, were the ones storming the Capitol and putting everybody's lives and our democracy in danger. Republicans have turned their back on us, literally, when we went to Pennsylvania State Assembly House. They walked out, jeering us and booing us for simply being there. We protected them and their colleagues here in Congress and instead of condemning the violence, they have condoned it with their silence and instead refuse to acknowledge and honor our service. They forget that we the officers, saved their lives. I took an oath to defend the Constitution, and I kept it. I will remind them that the oath they took is to the Constitution of the United States and not the President. Thank you for having me and honoring us.
Thank you, Sergeant Gonell, for those beautiful, moving words. And to close us out, Officer Danny Hodges.
Good afternoon. I'm here today on this Peace Officer Memorial Day in my personal capacity because Congressman Swalwell invited me. Eric is actually the first congressman I ever met. After January 6th, he reached out and we met. He didn't have any political machinations in mind. He just wanted to ask how I was doing and say thank you. To say thank you, that's what today is all about, right? That's what this week is about. That's what this plaque is about. But it's a lot more than I can say for the Republican members of Congress who didn't deign to show up here today. With the exception of Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, I have not heard from a single Republican member of Congress, not even to say thank you. And to my knowledge, none of my colleagues have either. I have heard other things from them, though, how January 6th was just a tourist visit, how we let them inside, how it was Antifa, how it was a conspiracy from the feds. They can't say thank you, though. They like to say that they are the party of law and order, that they back the blue. Well, I have 10 years now in law enforcement, and there is only one group I've found that actually backs the blue. And I guarantee you it's not the GOP. And absolutely no disrespect to the people who came to support us today, but it's not the Democrats either. It's nobody so superficially labeled by race or religion, where they're from. The people who actually support the police are people in crisis. It's people in crisis that have a desperate faith that law enforcement will come and fight the fight that they cannot. And on January 6, 2021, in this building, this country's Congress was in crisis. The Vice President of this country was in crisis. The United States of America was in crisis. And I felt the desperate faith that everyone had that we would deliver them from this fight that they could not fight themselves. And we did. It cost us our sweat, our blood. Some of us, it cost us our jobs. Some of us, it cost us our peace of mind. And for some, it eventually cost us our lives. But we did deliver them from that fight. The transfer of power was made, and our democracy survived. But now that the Sedition Caucus is no longer in crisis, they have forgotten their desperate faith in law enforcement and replaced it with a smug pandering that I cannot describe how sick it makes me when I see them post back the blue or a Blue Lives Matter flag or whatever, and then they won't look me in the eye when I come down here to talk about the valor my colleagues showed in taking the blows that were meant for them. So I have no faith in them to do the right thing. They have long since revealed who they are. But I sincerely hope that from today onward, fewer and fewer people are fooled by their disgusting pandering, their words, and see them for who they actually are. Looking out for number one, they look out for themselves. And vote accordingly. But I am comforted by the fact that culturally the victory is ours eventually, if it isn't already. They can bury this plaque 20 feet underground, but we all know the truth of what happened that day. It's not going away. They can't make it go away. And so the truth will out. I just hope that it comes out sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you again to Sergeant Gonell, Officer Hodges, my colleagues. And to summarize, yes, they can bury this plaque. We will make sure it is posted in January 2027. And we won't meet here, we will meet inside. So they can bury the plaque for now, but they will never bury the heroism and the truth of what those officers did on January 6th. Thank you.